At some point in their career, many originators face this ultimate question: do I want to originate for the rest of my career, or am I meant to do something more than that? Am I meant to do something different? Do I want to grow a team and focus on that? For Robert Fillyaw, that moment changed everything for him. And in this episode, we're going to dive into just how Robert made that shift from originating manager to non-originating manager, more of a focus into leading. And we're going to tackle the blueprint behind that growth and what every producing manager can learn from in this playbook if they're looking to make that same change. All right, excited for today. I got to be a part of Robert's, massive shift and change and growth. So really interested and excited to dive in and rehash some of the memories, man.
Me too, man. I'm excited. I got to tell you though, I'm a little butthurt. This is part of our blueprint series that we're doing, and Dave not only got to go first, but he got 2 episodes, and now here I come in, kind of second fiddle. So I got to bring the wood to make up for that. So
All right,
I'm
well, let's
excited.
go.
I mean, would you say I had a better story that might have something to do with it?
No, that's absolutely not the case, Dave. I think it was a scheduling issue, right? Like, if we want to be really transparent and honest, I was out of town, so we had to put you in first. But listen, whatever you whatever you need to tell yourself, David.
We haven't had Robert on a podcast for a while. Feels like, Tom, huh?
I don't think so. I don't think so. But
Yeah.
we're gonna dive right in today. We're putting them on blast.
We're gonna
All
jump
right,
in.
let's
Yeah,
go.
sorry, I've been missing you boys. I mean, the fall has been busy with travel, so
Yeah. So a little background on Robert, of course, ex-Marine leader, prides himself in the logistical problem solver, very driven, goal-oriented, determined. So we're going to talk through some of the stuff that's led you to today. So, we talked a little bit about that turning point, Robert. We mentioned that in the opening. Was tell us the time that you started thinking, like, because there was a point in time, and look, there's nothing wrong with just being. No, we shouldn't say just. There's nothing wrong with being a top producing originator for your entire career. Nothing wrong with that at all.
and for most people, that is the right answer,
Yeah,
right? For probably 90%, that is
It
the right
pays
answer.
the bills.
Yeah.
It's a good living, especially if you get dialed in. And we have seen so many people fail at trying to be a non-producing branch manager or a producing branch manager.
Yeah. Well, it's hard, and we're going to talk about some of that today because you go from being in full control to thinking you're not, but you actually are of your future and and the outcome, and I think Robert's done a great job of that. So, let's talk about that. You felt a calling, and I think that's what it takes, right? It really takes, like, not like feeling like I'm supposed to graduate to this. Like, you have to feel a calling towards it. Talk a little bit about what led to that.
I think that's a great way to put it, Tom. It's really, you got to have a massive why behind it, right? And what I've shared with a lot of people, and probably even on this podcast, is the why got bigger than me. It got when my why got to be more about me, then that's when it was kind of that next step to pull into building the branch and moving away from origination and just leading. Frankly, the first kind of catalyst is I wanted to build something that could have a legacy to it, that when I decided to step away, if I decided to step away, my kids could step into and possibly take over and run. And I think from an origination standpoint, that's really hard to do, right? We all want to think that, you can build your team and hand your origination off to someone in the distant future when you get ready to go to the sideline, but it's not as easy said as it's not as easy done as said. So with the branch opportunity, I felt like that was a little bit different. If I had built a branch that was sustaining and running and profitable, and I got to a point where my kids come into it and can learn the business and take it over and keep the branch running, that's more feasible in my mind anyway. And that was kind of the seed that started it. And kind of had me looking in that direction. Frankly, also, I was kind of burnt out on originating, man.
That's what I was going to ask you. Were you getting I remember some when I first met you, some of the origination stories you told that because you did a lot of USDA, right?
Yeah, yeah, a lot of
You
Govy loans, a lot of manufactured homes, a lot of USDA loans,
you had some harder loans, and you
a
you
lot
were
of hard
getting
loans.
when I first met you, is before you fully transitioned to being a branch manager and leading a large team, you were a little toasted. Is that fair?
Yeah, 100% fair.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because I mean, think of, I had built the team, but I'm disclaimer, I'm a little OCD, right? So I had built the team, but I still had my hands on so much of it and was still way more involved than I would ever coach or want our loan officers to be as they start building their teams. So I'm still taking the weekend calls. I'm still taking night calls. I'm still wanting to do every conversation with borrowers at this point, right? So yeah, it's a lot. Had the twins, this is probably 2016, 2017 when I really started thinking about this shift. So kids are like 6 and 7, 6, 7, right? Um, I had to. Sorry, guys. And so yeah, there was a degree of burnout to it. There was that big why for me, and then the other piece of it that happened. I'm not going to sit here and sound all virtuous like this was what I knew was going to happen or what I was hoping for, even, or like I wanted to scale to where I had a business. I wasn't the business, if that makes sense. And for me, that means if I took an afternoon off for my kids, things were being handled. The branch could run without me being there on every aspect of it every day. So, and that I was building something that was a legacy for my kids. What came out of that I didn't even like going into it, had no idea, is just this servant leadership that I love, and I call it ripples in the pond. The impact that I started having with the leadership and the teams and the people that we were bringing in on their life and their business and their team structure and the development and the growth that they experienced, and the way that honestly kind of filled my tank. I didn't know that going into it. I didn't expect that. It was a pretty cool aspect of it that just made it even more fulfilling. And I think for those of you out there who may be considering this, like, you have to know that that's really what it is, though. It's servant leadership. It's like, I remember I can tell you probably 20 stories of, we're running a pipeline and, there's a capacity issue or 4 files have to go to closing. Um, they have to go in order, right? Which one's going first? And guess what? One of my team's files may have been in there in the mix, and my file's going last because I'm the leader. And my now it's changed. It's not about me. It's about taking care of the originators who have partnered with me and are trusting me to help and grow and build their business. So it's a different mindset, but it's been a hell of a ride. It's been a lot of fun.
How much of like your geography where you live played into that as well too? Because you're in North, for people who don't know, you're in Gainesville, which is, I guess, north central Florida. Is that fair?
Correct. Yeah, North Central.
Yeah. So you were only able to build so big of a branch in that area. Uh, but I guess you got Tampa within a couple hours and some other major metros. But how much of your like location and geography played into it as well too? Because when you recruited branches from all over the country.
Well, in the y'all states primarily in the southeast. We got a little bit outside of that, but those are my people, Dave. You know that. But yeah, no, it absolutely played a part. And for me, for better or worse, right or wrong, not only did it play a part in how big can you get, how much market saturation can you have, like those aspects of it, but also I'm in a smaller, like we have a smaller area, a smaller footprint, right? Population wise, and there's a lot of chitter chatter, right? So uh it got to a point where I was self hold on. I always forget this word.
Self sufficient?
No, it got to a point where I was self-conscious about some of the success that I had, and it almost felt like it was a hindrance as an originator at that level. So it was almost like I needed to do something bigger to justify the success. And that's probably more in my own head than factual, but like it was a small factor of it.
What let's talk a little bit about that before you were able to actually shift your focus, take some of that focus off of your personal production and your personal production team. What and let's talk not volume, let's talk units because 9 years ago the loan amounts were different, so it's not as relative today.
Especially when you're
Let's
doing
talk
USDA loans.
how many units a month, was your team doing? And how did you like get it dialed in to where you're like, I can go serve others now, and this can still be an income for me because you kind of needed that along the way. Obviously, you don't just start a branch and income starts flowing, right? As you
Yeah,
know.
absolutely. I think that's a great question, Tom. And as we talk about the Blueprint series, I would say that's anyone looking to take this path. That's step one is you have to focus and build your team because you have to get your team to a point where you're relying on them and trust them implicitly to be able to continue the business and the relationships that you've built and grown while you're going to kind of shift focus and do some of this other stuff because you still need that coming in. So we had gotten to where an average month was probably 20 to 25 units. We'd have high watermarks in the 40s. I remember back in I think 16, I think we closed 290 units on my team. It was a bunch of loans, right? And we had set a goal for the next year to do 365. We wanted a closing for every day of the year. Um, but the team was at a point, and this was several years of building them and developing them and teaching them and coaching them to where they were really 90% of me. And once I kind of got them to that where they were 90% of me, and I felt confident and comfortable that the business as it came in that they could handle it, then I could kind of shift the focus and go and start having some of the conversations and some of the the relationship building activities. It's all the same. Like ultimately you're doing the same thing. You're building relationships. It's just who are you building them with? Are you building them with clients and referral partners? Or do you shift and now you're building it with other originators?
And I think getting your business in line to where you can go out and serve others is also inspiring to the others you're attempting to go out and serve and bring to your team because a lot of times their business isn't in that position where they can go do anything else to help anybody else. So to show them like the production that you're doing at a high level, how it's kind of dialed in, that's the path that they're looking to have help get paid for them. So that led a lot to your ability to grow, right? Because you had put it in, you had that clout. I would say that respect given because you were doing it, not just had
Yeah.
done it.
Well, it's proof of concept, right?
Right.
It's one of
That's the
those
word I was
things
looking.
where past always predicts future, and I mean, we could use 100 analogies here, right? Pick one. Sports comes to mind. Like, there's a reason that people get recruited to Nick Saban when he was at Alabama, right? Because he had a proven track record of building great teams that won championships, and that's why it's attractive and people go there. So yeah, absolutely. When we have this record, this blueprint, if you will, of this is how I built my team, and here's where we were, here's where we are now, and here's how it runs. That solves 60, 70, 80% of the problems that most originators have in the market. So
Mhm,
it's instant attractive. And now I am adding value and bringing something to the table that wherever they are, whoever their leadership is, whatever their career is, hasn't been there to this point. And it's powerful. And to this day, we do it. We talk about it, right? We
mhm.
use Dave's team as an example when we're recruiting and talking with conversations. We use the other teams that we've built. Like we live in a world where past predicts future, and you know it. If you figured it out once and you got through the challenges and the hurdles, the second time you do it, it's even easier. The third,
Sure
the
thing.
fourth, the fifth. By the time you get to the 15th, 16th, like it's old hat. You
It
know what I mean?
takes time.
It
It
takes
takes
time.
time. One of our top branches, we've been working with them for 15, 16 months, and they're basically there. Um, Well, Robert, what have you
It
seen?
well, it real quick, Dave, it takes time and it's not linear. So many people, right, think that it's just you're going to do this and, then the next step is this and the next step is this. And even now we're talking about a blueprint, right? Well, yeah, that's great until you're building the team and you get a resignation from a loan partner out of the blue that you weren't expecting, and now you have to regroup and rebuild, right?
Mhm,
Or something goes sideways, right? Like I was building the team and planning to do a lot of this at a company that at the time shifted gears and changed leadership and changed the way they like no control of mine and basically made it almost impossible to do what I was wanting to do. So then I had to pivot, and that's where Tom and I ended up meeting. Um, so not only does it take time, but there's going to be setbacks. There's going to be frustrations. That's to me that's why I started with your why has to be big enough to make it make sense. Because if it's
Mhm.
not, when you hit some of those frustrations, when you get some of those setbacks, you're just going to go back to originating and do what you've always done because it's comfortable. It's easy
Mhm.
at that point, right?